Hello, everyone. How are you? Waiting for more people to come on in. Hello. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Let Instagram do its thing. Okay, just alerted people. Let me turn off my feel-good music. I always like to uplift myself before I start this. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Hi. Mwah. Hi. Oh, hi, everyone. I'm sending you all so much love. And I am so grateful that you're taking time out of your day to watch this and to learn and to better yourself. Good morning back. Thank you. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited that you're excited to be here. Today we have the Champagne Diet. I have to tell you, I love her account so much. She is just this like confident badass. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. She is a best-selling author. She has 9 best-selling books. She has a podcast. It's called Style Your Mind, where 8 million listeners worldwide tune in every week. I mean, it's incredible. So, hi, Champagne Diet said, I'm here. I'm introing you right now. I'm so excited. So, all right, let's have her join. Hold on one second. Let me. Oh, you love the background. Thank you. This is my new home. Thank you. It's very peaceful here. All right, Cara's going to join us.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Hold on, let me make it a little louder. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I feel like your mirror and your pillow are so representative of who you are. I just have to tell you that.
Everything's on brand all the time.
I love that. And I know you're an entrepreneur. I keep describing you as this like confident badass because that's the impression I have when I look at your page and your branding. And so we're going to get right into it because I know, a lot of people struggle with self-esteem and confidence and quote unquote self-love, which is a very difficult thing to obtain. So hi, everyone. So everyone, please drop your comments, your questions below. We're going to try and get to as many as we can with Cara. And Cara, let's just start off by talking about how did you get to a place of being so confident? Like, were you always confident as a kid when you were a teenager, or were you sort of like the outsider and you learned to teach yourself somehow to make being different like cool and important?
Yeah, I was not confident at all. I mean, when I was very young, I was confident. I think most people are at a young age. And then something happens. It actually happens around the age of 9 for girls. I don't know if anybody knows this, but that is really when our self-esteem starts to change and we start to listen to the opinions of other people and start to doubt our bodies and the way that we look. So for me, I definitely went through it around that. Then as I got older, I was always kind of like the weirdo. Like I was not the popular girl. I was not like hanging out with the cheerleaders. I was always like with like the weird kids, like listening to rock music and like dressing in all black. And I don't know. I think that like for me, I just started to look at everything I was going through in life. And I rather than like let things affect me and let people sort of like put me down or keep me down, I just looked at that as like an opportunity to grow and to be above it and to learn more about myself and learn about other people. I think like I've always like looked at people who are kind of the outsiders as inspiration, like especially in music. I love music. I've always looked at people like David Bowie, for example, or like artists that I love. And I've admired how they've just been themselves, and I really kind of like take a lot of my inspiration from people who are just like blazing their own trail in life and not trying to fit in. I think it's so boring to try to be like everybody else. And, I think that's very apparent on social media, right? Like people who are just trying to be carbon copies of others. I think the people who really resonate are the people who can be authentic and can really truly feel good about themselves.
So how do you get to a place of just being comfortable in your own skin so that your authentic self shines through? Because a lot of times, and people try to mold us. The careers we go into, people around us look a certain way, act a certain way, and sometimes we feel like we have to mold ourselves or adapt to that. How do we stay true to who we are?
I think you have to start with having a vision of who you are, right? I always say, like, think about the person you want to be, right? Like, what is that woman for me? It's like, what woman do I want to be? how does she move through the world, right? How does she handle situations? How does she show up for herself? How does she show up for others? How does she dress? How does she speak? Like, I always have a vision of who I want to be, what I want to continue to aspire to, because I think we're always evolving and growing. So having that vision and then staying true to it. And when I feel myself, you know, experiencing self-doubt, I ask myself, like, is this aligning with the person I am, the person that I'm aspiring to become? If I'm sitting here stressing myself out or wondering if people like me or wondering if I'm going to be accepted, I'm like, no, like the version of me that like gets what she wants, that's super confident, that loves her life, that feels good about herself, she doesn't do that, right? So I think it's about aligning your actions and your behaviors to the person that you're trying to become.
I love that. And so I know we all struggle with self-limiting beliefs and this inner critic that tells us on a daily basis, sometimes every second for some of us, that we're not worthy, we are not good enough. Who we really are is not worthy of the life that we want, the life that we desire, the life that we deserve. So how do we start to, you know, sort of transform our inner talk so that in our inner dialogue?
You know, it's a process for sure. I love affirmations. And I think the thing about affirmations that I love is, like, first of all, you have to believe them, right? Like, you can't just like say a bunch of affirmations that don't really resonate with you. So I think start to get clear on the parts about yourself that you really do love, right? Like, you know, for example, like I work out, I love to work out. And I've always like struggled with my weight. Like as a kid, I was always like a little chubbier. Like, I was never skinny. I knew I was never going to be skinny. But I started to realize I could be really strong. You know, so one of like the affirmations I started to like say to myself, like when I go train in the mornings and when I go work out, is like, you know, I'm like powerful AF. I don't know if we can curse on here, but I have a really—
You can. I curse all the time. Go for it. Be yourself.
I'm like, I'm powerful as fuck. I'm powerful as fuck. And I repeat it over and over and over again. Like just this morning, I was like boxing and like deadlifting and doing all this heavy weight training. And I was like getting myself pumped up. If I were to sit here and be like, I'm trying to lose 30 pounds, I want to be like, that wouldn't work, you know, because it's just not the truth. And I don't want to be skinny. I don't identify as that. So for me, it's like tapping into the part of myself that I already believe and then affirming it over and over and over again. So figure out whatever it is that you believe to be true about yourself. And if you have a hard time doing this, one of my favorite things to do, I tell my clients this all the time and myself, go, if you have a bio, like if you're like a creator and you have like a bio on your website, or if you have a LinkedIn page, like go read your bio and remember who the fuck you are every day, right? Like get up in the morning and be like, oh my God, I accomplished this. I've done this. I've done all of these different things. Like celebrate yourself and remind yourself of who you are. I think we spend so much time thinking about what we're not and what we have left to accomplish, what we have done, what other people have done. You've done a lot of amazing shit. So start to celebrate it and own it.
What's the one thing that you tell yourself, or maybe more than one thing that you tell yourself when you're in this place of feeling really discouraged? Maybe life knocked you down. Maybe you're not feeling good about your weight. Maybe you, you know, had a personal failure happen to you. What's some things that you tell yourself on during those times?
You know, we have to be really careful not to let our past or our failure define us. I actually don't believe in failure at all. Like
me too. I said, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, failure is just experience. I mean, if I think about like my first book that I ever wrote, I tried so hard to get a book deal. This was like probably like 11 or 12 years ago at this point. All I wanted was a book deal. I got an agent, we shopped the book, and I got rejected by 19 different publishers.
19.
And 19. Like I didn't even know 19 publishers existed. And at that point I could have been like, I'm a failure. I'm never going to be an author. This is not my destiny, right? We have a lot of us like to kind of take the easy way out by going, oh, it's just a sign from the universe to give up. And I was like, no, that's not a sign from the universe. It's if anything, it's a sign to push forward and find a way. Like if 19 people said no, like I'm going to say yes to myself. And I wound up self-publishing my first book. And then I did a few more. And then my fourth book that I self-published called Girl Code blew up. And now it's been translated in like, I don't know, 9 or 10 languages. Like I got a double book deal. Then I went back to self-publishing and I just like made a life for myself. So I think we have to be really careful to not let other people's opinions of us define us, not let those failures define us, because there's always an opportunity to shift and change. You literally have like every second of the day to change your mind about who you are and to start to have a new vision for your life and create a new path for yourself, right? Nobody's standing in the way but you.
I have to tell you, I need to hear this, like have this conversation today. And I feel like so many people probably do too, because, you know, as humans, we're faced with so much rejection and hardship and disappointment in life. And figuring out how to not stay stuck in that and transcend into a place of blazing our own trail, allowing that fire within us to light up, you know, our path ahead. How do you like, do you ever get stuck in these, like, you know, inner critic, your inner dialogue that's kind of negative? Do you ever get stuck in that? Or do you just, are you in a place now where because you've done this so often, you practice positive self-talk that you don't even get stuck there anymore?
I mean, I totally get stuck. I think we all do, right? Like if I'm having
Yeah.
a day where I'm kind of tired or I'm like just for whatever reason down on myself, it's usually when I'm tired. I always say don't trust your brain when you're exhausted because you're going to tell yourself all the terrible things.
Yes.
But yeah, I have those moments all the time. But I think what I have learned to do is really to shift my mindset. The first thing that I do is shift my environment. So like if I'm sitting at home and I'm on the computer or if like I'm scrolling Instagram and I'm starting to feel down on myself or I'm waiting for a text to come through or an email to come through and I'm feeling like, you know, I'm not being chosen or I'm feeling
Yeah.
like down, I'm like, fuck this. Like I have to get out of the house. I'll go work out. I'll go shop. I'll go, you know, take a walk in nature. Like I'll just go call a friend from outside. I live in New York City, so I'll walk all around my neighborhood and look at all the street art and stop and just really like just take myself out of the physically out of the environment that I'm in because when our physical environment changes, our mental environment changes as well. So that has been a game changer for me. Also, like I love music, like I said, so putting on a really empowering playlist, listening to something that makes me feel good. Yeah, like if you're, I just said this to I have like a group that I host every month, and I said this to them the other day. I'm like, if you're sitting around listening to like sad songs all day, you're gonna feel sad. It's just a fact. I've done it, totally been there.
Me
So
too.
I just, yeah, just like being aware of like what you're doing, what your habits are, and changing them, and being like bold enough to change your habits because I think we get stuck in patterns, and until we can say to ourselves like, I'm tired of my own bullshit, it's time to make a change. We're gonna stay stuck. So you've got to figure out like what that change is. But like, yeah, getting out of the house before is a big one.
And so I know, like, I've done that. Like, I was having a tough, like, few months recently for some reason. My mental health was just sort of like, I was just feeling down about a lot of stuff. And I was getting stuck in that frame of mind. And so I started, okay, let me take myself out of my environment. Let me go for a walk. Let me, you know, go on the treadmill. Let me listen to some music. But those things sometimes are like temporary fixes. What do you tell people who, you know, do those things, but are still feeling down and depressed and stuck in the negative stuff going on?
If you're feeling depressed and stuck, like I don't believe you have to feel that way alone. Like I'm a huge believer in therapy, coaching, all of those things. Like I've had therapists my entire life.
Me too. So I was 15 and like proud of it. Yeah.
Like everybody needs a therapist. In fact, so many people are getting therapists right now. I think like there's wait lists like all over the place just to even like find someone to talk to, which is so incredible. I mean, we're going through a wild time in the world. It's like there's a lot. So I think don't beat yourself up if you're feeling down. Like everyone is feeling that way. Even me, like I definitely have my moments. If I have to be really cautious of like what I take in because my job is to uplift other people. And if I'm sitting here watching the news all day crying and feeling horrible, because I do, and there is a part of me that has to be aware of what's going on, but I've got to like shift that. I've got to figure out how I'm going to move forward and change my energy so I can help the people that I'm meant to help. So I think definitely find a therapist, find a coach, find positive, uplifting friends that you can talk to. You know, I text my friends all day long and we support each other through whatever we're going through. Find groups online, find pages like your page or my page, a safe space to come to and consume information and meet people. So yeah, definitely don't suffer by yourself.
Do you think that some people, they worry so much about what other people think because at heart they're people pleasers? Or do you think people pleasing really has nothing to do with it?
I think it depends really on the person, but for sure, I mean, being a people pleaser, I used to be that way. And until I realized that people pleasing was actually a form of control. If you think about it, if you're trying to people please, you're really trying to manipulate the way somebody sees you and views you. And when I learned that, when I learned that, I was like, oh my God, it's so much more liberating and freeing to just not give a fuck what anybody thinks about you and live your life and feel good about the choices you're making. Like, especially when you're in the public eye, like I've written books, like I'm out there, you know, I have an Instagram page just like you do. I get a lot of like negative comments, people that don't agree with things I say. If I sat around all day and like thought about that and like fed into that negativity, I would never be fully self-expressed. I would be creating things that were not true to me. I'd just be creating for other people. And I think as a creator, and I'm a writer at heart, I view myself as a writer, as an artist, as a creative person. I mean, why would I do what I do? I just go back and work in a corporate job and just, work for someone else and build somebody else's dream. So I think it is partially people pleasing. I also think it's just fear of rejection, right? I think so. People are terrified to be rejected, but the more you put yourself out there, the more rejection you feel, and you realize like you'll always be okay, right? Like think about the worst time of your life, like the worst breakup you've ever been through, or heartbreak or disappointment. Like you're fine, you got through it. It sucked, but you're here today. You're thriving. You feel good about yourself. You laugh again. You have another good day. So we just have to realize, like, as cheesy and cliche as it sounds, like all of this stuff builds character, and it makes us better people.
I agree. And you have to also, sometimes what I do is I remind myself that this is temporary. I'm not talking about, and of course we're not addressing like really traumatic situations, things like that, but everyday life where things happen and things don't go as we had hoped, expected, planned, whatever it is. And, it just kind of sucks. I think that you have to remind yourself that this is temporary. And this is not going to last forever. And think back to all the times, like you said, where negative things have happened and we've gotten through it. And we have to remind and take ourselves, like you said, out of the environment. What's the first thing that you do when, bam, like you're hit with some negative something? Like it could be, a rejection or, a missed opportunity or whatever it is. What's the first thing that you tell yourself when you start to feel yourself? Because I think that's where the magic is, where you start to feel yourself, oh my God, overthinking and consuming the negativity.
That's a great question. I think I take a step back and I really try not to react in the moment, because I think in that reaction, we fuel that like fear and that anger and that anxiety and all those horrible feelings we don't really want to feel.
Yeah.
I try to look for the options. Like I try to look for, okay, this went wrong, but here's what can now go right? Like this person rejected me. Now I get to meet new people, better people. This apartment fell through. Now I get to move into an even better apartment. This job opportunity didn't happen. Now I can go out there and figure out what's next. So I think trying to shift and think about, well, what else can you do with your life? Like what else is possible for you now that this thing has not worked out for me? There's always another alternative. There's always something else. There's always a way to kind of pivot into a happier space.
And I think also it's, to me, it's a matter of not tying our identity to that rejection and to that negative situation, and sort of creating a buffer between ourselves and that thing. Like that situation, that person who rejected us, that apartment that fell through, whatever it is, it does not define us. And sometimes that, for me, that helps myself to remind myself and say, okay, this person rejected me. I'm bummed about it because I'm human, but that means that now the universe is allowing space for someone else to come through. And,
totally.
It may not work right now, but it may work next year. Who knows? And so, yeah. What were you going to say?
We put like people and situations on pedestals, and let's say a person, like a guy or something, rejects you or doesn't text you back or ghosts you or whatever. Like, we put people on such pedestals and we hold them in such a high regard, and oftentimes we don't even really know them, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily that person, but I think it's like the fantasy of what could have been. So when we have a rejection, we're like not mourning and grieving over that person. We're kind of grieving the fantasy of what that could have turned into for us. If we really wanted love and somebody broke up with us, like, oh man, I'm missing out on all of these different things, when in reality, you can find that again. And you can find that from a better person that's more aligned for you in a better relationship. So again, like you said, like we assign so much meaning to certain things, and we let that meaning, take so much hold of us and so much mental energy. Like if you think about anything you've gone through, especially, I love to talk about relationships lately because it's just been like something, like as I'm dating now, like I'm newly single and starting to date and put myself out there, it's like so fascinating the way that we respond. And I think now, me dating as a 41-year-old woman who's gone through some shit, I just don't have the space to obsess over people. I don't have the space to obsess over what's not in my life or what's missing, what went away, or who didn't text me back or whatever. Like, so much more that we can do with ourselves. If you took all that energy and poured it into yourself and your own personal goals, your business goals, like think about how much, you know, you'd accomplish.
What about like, you know, people who, you know, do all this and they just keep going from one negative situation to another? Like it feels like nothing is working out. Nothing, the universe does not have their back. The universe is not on their side. What do they do? Because I think that's so hard.
I mean, I think it's about perspective, right? Like the universe doesn't want, the universe is neutral, right? Like the universe is not out to get you. It's not setting you up for failure. It's the way that you view those situations, right? Like take my book deal. If I would have taken, you know, that situation and, you know, those 19 publishers and told myself like, oh, I'm not, like I said, not meant to be an author, not meant to have this. If I look at my past relationships that didn't work out and said, oh, I'm going through this hard time, then I continue to identify the girl that's going through a hard time.
That's
But
it.
in reality, all I can do is just turn into someone else and tell myself, no, I'm not going to let that get me down. I'm going to be the resilient girl. I'm going to be the resourceful girl. I'm going to be the chosen girl. I'm going to be the girl that goes out there and chooses herself. I'm not going to let anything else define me. So it's really the way you see yourself. And like I said, the meaning that you're assigning to these situations in your life. Like you can be a victim or you can be a success, but you cannot be both. You just cannot be both, right? You've got to choose. What am I going to do? Am I going to get back up and put myself out there and go get the things that I want to do? Or am I going to sit around and cry over what I don't have?
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's okay to feel those that sadness, that rejection, that disappointment, discouragement, and sit in it for a little bit because sometimes that teaches us things as well. But I agree, like you don't have to stay in it. There's a difference between like hanging out with it for a little bit and sitting and staying in it. And so allow yourself the time to do that, but then make a conscious decision to choose yourself, to choose a good life, to whatever it is in that positive direction, right?
For sure. You cannot bypass bad feelings because they'll come back to haunt you, right?
Yeah.
Like, so grieve the loss, whatever that loss is, whether it's a professional loss, a personal loss, grieve it, have your moment, but give yourself a timeline. Give yourself like a period of time to feel that way and then get back up and figure out the next best step.
I love it. And I have to tell you, I pulled out this mug today just for you. I felt like it was so perfect. Empower yourself to not give a fuck. It's from my friend, the Cosmic Feminist. She creates all this cool stuff. But thank you. It's just so perfect for this.
So cute.
Isn't it cool? I'll show everyone. It's so fun. But you know, to me, even something like this, like I'll pour my tea or my coffee in this, and all of a sudden I have this mantra here that shifts my mindset because sometimes we're not able to do it within ourselves. And so sometimes like external things like as small as like an uplifting mug helps.
Totally. I mean, podcasts, YouTube channels, there's so much you can do to feed your mind with positivity, right? And to feed your mind with like good thoughts. You can like every reality is available to you every day. There's the reality of being the person who's stuck and held back and sad and can't move forward. And then there's the reality of being the person that picks themselves up and goes out and finds the resources. I think with social media and all the platforms that are available to us, like, you know, there's everything out there at your fingertips to feel better.
Yeah. Are there certain like affirmations that you say to yourself on a daily basis, or do they change depending on like what your mood is or what you're going through?
Yeah, they totally change. And it depends on like whatever it is that I'm kind of like working on, so to speak, at the moment. But I actually listed a bunch today in my story.
Okay, so everyone go to her story after this so you can check them out. Yeah,
I did like my morning affirmations, and I was like, pick whatever applies, like, you know, like I kind of did it in like the way, you know, like it goes like in the street and there's those flyers and it's like take one, like a phone like I posted them all like little.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that concept. I think that's great. Yeah, and you know, you write like a lot of most of your own quotes on your platform, and you have so much wisdom, and I love the energy that you bring, because I think that, like you said, like we have a choice every single moment of every single day. We're only here right now, right? Like we don't know what the next moment will bring us. So in this moment, we can choose to be a badass person, or we can choose to be stuck in negativity, in sadness, and deplete ourselves of our energy and the good things that life probably has for us ahead. And sometimes we're so stuck we can't even see the light. It's like we're like blinded at that point. So everything you're saying is so accurate. Do you practice self-love, or is that like a term? I know like people either love or hate the term self-love. How do you feel about it?
I think that it is a verb. It's something you have to physically do. And the way I practice it is by making promises to myself that I keep. So, for example, if I tell myself, you know, I'm going to stay in this weekend and I'm going to get to bed early and I'm going to organize my apartment, to me, that's an act of self-love when I actually stay home and do it, right? If I say I'm going to get up early for a workout and I go meet my trainer and work out, like that's an act of self-love. You know, if I tell myself I'm not going to ruminate and obsess over something that didn't work out, and instead I'm going to go write, you know, or read, like that's an act of self-love. So for sure, I think it's more than just telling yourself, I love myself, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it's actually the actions that, you know, align with it.
And are there, like, you know, I think everyone probably, or most people are looking at you like, oh my God, I want to be that kind of person. I want to be this person that just blazes my own trail, does not care what people think. And I just, people really struggle to get to that place. And I know you went over like some tips that you have for people, but are there any like other fundamental things that people can do to at least start to get to that place? Because I think it's micro improvements. Those micro improvements get us to like this huge big picture. So yeah, what kind of tips do you have for people?
I think being able to trust yourself is one of the biggest parts of being confident, because, you know, how many times do you go to make a decision about something and you start polling people, right? You start asking everyone their opinion. Should I do this? Should I quit
Guilty,
my
yeah.
job? Right? Like, what do you think? And then, you know, you ask 10 different people for their opinion, you're going to get 10 different answers. And you're probably looking just for the person that's going to agree with what you know in your gut you really want to do. And until you get that person to agree with you, you don't make the move. So I think one of the ways we can practice becoming confident is just by not asking anyone, making a decision, even if it's something so small, like what should I eat for dinner? Just choosing what you're going to eat for dinner without consulting anyone else, right? And then like it becomes the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Before you know it, you're operating in your own world, right? I call it my champagne bubble. My brand is the champagne diet. I'm like, get out of my champagne bubble. I literally joked with one of my girlfriends the other day on the phone. I was like, you're stealing my joy. Like, stop. Because like I told her a story. Like, no, don't do that or whatever. I was like, you're stealing my joy. And like I joke about it, you know, but it's true. Like you are responsible for your world and your happiness. And when you start to let the opinions of other people affect your choices and the moves you're going to make, you wind up really holding yourself back. I think everybody is going to give you an opinion based on their own set of experiences and beliefs, but ultimately yours are the only ones that matter.
And I think too, you know, if we start to take a step back and we don't become so consumed by what other people think, or is this decision, you know, going to be the right one or the wrong one, and think about like, you know, start catastrophizing all the things that can potentially happen. If we just take a step back and just make a decision, like we are not tied to that, like it does not define us, and just sort of create that buffer. You know, I think that really helps. And I know I'm a completely indecisive person, and I've had to do like what you said, small little things like, do I pick the blue pen or the red pen? And sometimes like that's the toughest decision for me, and I'm like, I'm gonna go with the blue pen, and I don't think about it and I just do it, and it has helped, those little things. So what can people do in terms of, and we got a lot of questions on this, or people struggling with this, in terms of teaching ourselves how to not care what people think? That is so hard because we live in this world where image is everything, you know, society pushes this, whatever it is. How do we do that?
You know, when I was writing one of my books, my third book, I think it was, I read a study by a nurse. I think she might have been in Australia or New Zealand. And she was a nurse, like a hospice nurse. So she cared for patients like at the end of their life. And she went around asking everyone in her hospice, what is your number one regret? And every single person said, I lived a life that wasn't totally true to myself. I wish it had been more true to who I am. And she wrote it was a study which turned into a famous book called The Top Regrets of the Dying. And I remember reading this when I was working my full-time job at MTV. And I was struggling with a lot of anxiety, and I had the blog, and I had just become a life coach, and I really wanted to quit my job. And that to me is one of the biggest decisions like in the world, right? Because you're like, oh my God, I'm going to walk away from this six-figure corporate job that I worked so hard to get to take a chance on a blog called The Champagne Diet. Like nobody understood. Nobody. Everybody was like, oh my
Oh, I
God.
thought you're crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
But I saw the vision. I saw it. And I think when you have a vision, I don't, God, universe, whatever you believe, will not give you a vision unless you are the person meant to execute it. I do believe that. And knowing that I had this vision and reading that study and learning about that just catapulted me. And I was like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks because this is my life. And at the end of the day, I don't want to reach the end of my life, which, by the way, you know, God bless us if it is 80 or 90 years old, but we don't know. It could be tomorrow. So do you want to reach the end of your life and be like, oh my God, I didn't do any of the things that I wanted to do? Or do you want to get to the end of your life and be like, wow, I like literally sucked it dry. I did everything. I you know, had every experience, good or bad, in between, but I did the things I wanted to do. And I remind myself of that constantly. Like, will it matter? Like, if I do this one thing, if you pick the blue pen over the red pen, or if you quit your job and it doesn't work out or whatever, like, you know, will it matter? No, because it's an experience and it's a something that's going to shape you into who you're meant to become. So, you know, you could literally like just like live your life like being cautious and like in bubble wrap and not doing anything you want to do and be probably a really boring person, or you can get out there and get some character and get some experience and take a risk.
And, you know, people will say, oh, well, I can't, you know, I don't have the luxury to quit my full-time job and just live this like fantasy life that I always dreamed of. And I get that, but I have to say from my personal experience, you can work, have a job that pays you well full-time, spend even like 15, 30 minutes at night when you come home from work, spend, you know, a few hours on the weekend working on whatever other vision that you want to create. You don't have to quit a job that, you know, is secure if you don't have that opportunity. But by not doing the little things, you are preventing yourself from creating the life that you want, right?
Yeah, I was at my job. I was at MTV for 8 years. And for 6 out of those 8 years, I built this business. For 6 out of the 8 years, at night, on the weekend, on my vacation days, I did not take one vacation. I took one vacation when I got married. We went away for like 4 days to London, and I came right back and I got to work. I took all my paid time off, and I went to life coaching school. I went to coaching school at night. I took clients. I would literally take vacation days, and I would make those like my pretend office days. So I would pretend I didn't work at MTV, and I would take coaching clients all day from, you know, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. I would run group coaching programs at night when I got home from like 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. You know, every single weekend I blogged. I made it happen. I went to events at night. Like I saved all my money. Like I didn't, and by the way, I didn't leave with a ton of money. I left with like whatever I could swing because I live in New York, and it wasn't like I was making $1 million a year, right? So I was making like, let's say 90 or 100,000 a year. Living in New York City, you're kind of taking
nothing in New York City. Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
So I was pretty average, you know, and I knew I got to a point after those 6 years rolled around where I was like, okay, I am maxed out right now on what I can do with my corporate job and my side hustle. So I knew it was the right time to take the leap. And I made it happen for myself, you know? So I think that a lot of people do kind of get stuck and they complain and they're like, well, I can't do it. What about health insurance? What about this? What about... You will figure it out, but you've got to put the work in now. And I think a lot of people just are not willing to do that work.
I agree. I think sometimes it's easier to be a victim rather than a victor in life, and people lean into that very easily, and they get, you know, it's a comfort zone thing. So they're comfortable in a way being scared because they're afraid of risking things. And, you know, I believe in calculated risk. It doesn't mean just go and like blow all your money on this and that. But, you know, if you're really thinking through something, you're saving your money, you're hustling on the side, it will only benefit you in the end. And I can speak from experience. I had a failed business that I had for a long time. It wrecked me. I mean, I was at rock bottom. I learned so much from that experience and created this platform and everything that's come from it from rock bottom. And I said to myself, I'm never going to repeat the same mistakes again. I learned my lessons. And as long as you're being conscious about it, and, you know, I hustle like you know, I have a newborn, and while I'm like pumping and the baby's crying next to me and I'm feeding her, I'm sending emails. So
Yeah.
I'm like one hand here, the things attached to me, and I'm sending. And so I think you can do anything you put your mind to. Do you agree with that?
1000%.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't step up to the plate and do those things because they know they're going to have to work and they're going to have to meet another version of themselves they're maybe not
Yes.
ready to meet. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, who do you need to become to do the things you want to do? It's not easy. It takes a lot of sacrifice. Like, I think, Instagram portrays a world where everything looks like it comes easily. It's glossy. It's pretty. Oh, she must have this. She must have that. She must have been in this position. She must have money. No, I mean, I was raised by a single mom. My dad was a drug addict, deadbeat that left us when I was 8. He gave us no money. I did not graduate college because I chose to work instead. And I went out there and built a life for myself, And like, I did it with like no degree and no silver spoon in my mouth, no family money, like nothing. Literally created everything from scratch. So anyone can do it. There's no excuse.
Yeah, I agree. Someone said they're trying to figure out what they want to do, but they're scared and afraid. How do you, what kind of advice do you tell people or give people so that they can kind of get out of their own head a little bit and start this journey towards being the confident badass that they were meant to be?
You have to just try things. Like, you're going to suck in the beginning. It's just the bottom line.
You may
You're
suck
gonna
like in and out, suck it. Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's a newbie at something. Enjoy it. Embrace being new. I tell this to all of my clients who are just starting businesses. I'm like, be grateful that you only have 300 followers because nobody is like criticizing you and judging you or really watching you. As you get bigger and put yourself out there, there's more eyes on you and it gets harder. So enjoy the beginning. Don't be afraid. You're going to learn something. You're only going to get better. If you don't start and take that step, you're always going to stay small. You're always going to wonder what if.
Yes, I agree. I'm trying to, I just, wait, hold on. I made my, hold on. I have these questions that we got in. Okay. So some questions that we got in. Someone said, as an entrepreneur, I've been through a lot of disappointment and failure. How do I regain confidence and let go of my self-limiting beliefs so I can achieve the success and abundance I so desire? I'm sure you get that question a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that person answered their question because they said they're self-limiting beliefs. So it's up to you to change those beliefs, to choose new ones that fit better, and just be around people who are doing it. I think it's really important to connect with other entrepreneurs who are honest and, have failed and have tried, didn't work out, because that's the reality of this thing, right? Like, I've launched like masterminds before that didn't sell, had books that didn't do as well as others. I think that you have to realize, like, if something doesn't go as planned, like, take a step back, analyze it, right? Do a little postmortem, look at that and be like, what could I have done differently? And sometimes you'll never know what you could have done differently, but learn from those things and move forward, just like you did, right? With your failed business, like, move forward with a new plan. You got to pivot quickly. You cannot stay stuck in that, woe is me, this is never going to work. Like, just try the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and eventually you'll figure out whatever that thing is that sticks.
I love your honesty too, because so many people are like, oh my God, I made it big after doing it. And a lot of people just don't connect with that. Most people go through hardships and quote unquote failure. I like to look at failure as an opportunity for growth, but it's still called failure to a lot of people. They don't feel good about it. It makes them feel icky. And so what you're saying is, like, I failed multiple times, but I still got right back up, learned from those mistakes, kind of rewired everything and did something different with it and became a success in other ways. And I think you have to be adaptable, right? Like, if something's not working, try something else. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? That's what I always say to myself. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, what is this person going to say that's so bad that's going to ruin me? So.
And you know what? I will fail again. You will fail again. We're in this game. This is part of being in business for yourself. Part of being an entrepreneur. It is a game. There is risk involved. There is reward involved. But if you're in the game, get ready to fail, and then get ready to get back up and do it all over again. That's part of it.
Yeah. And so someone else said, what is, we kind of already answered that. Let's go to another one. I've spent years hating myself and the reflection I see in the mirror. How do I learn to love myself?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think that you have to realize, like, we're all given certain gifts, and you have to start to love the gifts that you have, right? I think a lot of, like, self-loathing comes from comparing ourselves to other people. Like I talked about earlier, like, I could sit around and be like, oh my God, I'm never going to be 115 pounds. But I'm like, that's just not me. But I can be strong. You know, I can be resilient. I can be a fucking powerhouse in the gym. So like, I'm going to love on that. So find the things, like, even if it's one small thing that you really like about yourself, and start affirming it, right? Like, this girl, you guys should follow her. Her name's Serena Kerrigan. She's
What's
really
her name?
funny. Also, like, she's called Serena Kerrigan. She's great. She calls herself the Queen of Confidence.
Okay.
She talks about mirror talk, which is like, you know, I think Louise Hay, somebody told me, started like the concept of talking to yourself in the mirror. But she's like, do it every day. Do it all the time. Look at yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself the way you talk to your best friend. Right? Would you tell your best friend, oh my God, you look like shit today. You're never going to be skinny. Your hair looks like crap. Your skin looks like crap. Nobody wants you. You would never do that. So start to talk to yourself the way you would talk to your best friend or your mom or your sister or somebody that you love. I do it all the time. I walk by, I'm like, you're a fucking badass. And I walk away. Every day in the mirror. I'm like, your hair looks so good. Like, I literally tell myself these things. I'm like, God, your hair got so long. You look amazing today. Like, right now, I'm like, oh my God, my skin looks fucking great. My skin looks really good today. Like, we have to be able to do that. And it's not arrogant. It's not cocky. It's just celebrating yourself. And I think as a woman, when you act that way and you show other women it's okay to act that way, we have been brainwashed from society and the media and just the patriarchy and everything. I mean, for centuries, right? That we're not enough, that we can't feel good about ourselves. We can't talk, you know, we can't speak positively about ourselves. We have to hate our reflection. That's bullshit. So the more you do it and the more you normalize that among other women, I think that's how we really change our self-perception.
I totally agree. And I know, like, you know, there are always things that we put ourselves under like a microscope, right? Like our skin, our whatever it is, our flabby arms, anything. And I think, again, it goes back to not letting that define us and who we are, and knowing that our value is so much more than our flabby arms and whatever it is.
It gets old too.
It would,
right? It just gets old after a while.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the point where I was tired of beating myself up. I was tired of looking in the mirror and criticizing myself. And I'm like, let me try something new. And this feels so much better. So why don't you do the thing that feels good?
I love it. I was like, I just gave birth, and I remember I was on the treadmill. I was like, I'm going to go on even for like 20 minutes and just, I feel so uncomfortable in my own skin, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be compassionate to myself. And I made that decision. And as I'm on, I feel everything jiggling everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I did not feel good about myself, but I was like, that is not going to define me. I am so much more than the skin that I am in. I know I'm a good person. I'm kind. I started like saying positive things about myself to myself. And I think it does help. We have to rewire the way that our inner dialogue speaks to us. And that's really what you're saying, is change how you speak to yourself. And it all starts in here, right?
Totally. Yeah. Take care of yourself. I think that's part of self-love also. Like, you know, you don't have to like diet and work out like crazy. Like, move your body every day. Eat food that nourish you. Drink water. Like, do things that make you feel good, because I do believe that like, whatever we feed our bodies and how we treat our bodies does kind of help us mentally, right? It helps like our brain chemistry when you're getting enough sleep, when you're, you know, that's why I love to work out. It's not for the physical, although I love to get strong. It's for the endorphin, you know, boost. If I miss a day of working out, I'm like, I feel depressed. I feel tired. I feel exhausted. So whenever I'm having a moment, I'm like, just get to the gym, just go do something, you know? And again, the motivation's so different. It's not to lose weight. It's to feel really good.
It's just taking that first step. Taking that first step is always the hardest thing to do. But you realize when you take that first step, and it can be the smallest first step. It can be going on the treadmill for 5 minutes. It could be going and sitting out in the sun for 5 minutes. It could be writing, you know, in a gratitude journal, like one thing that you're grateful for that day. One small thing is literally breaking what I think it's like lifelong habits. Yep. And so you start breaking this habit, breaking through it, and suddenly things become easier. And you start to teach yourself and train yourself how to not be stuck in the negative self-talk, because we all have negative self-talk. And the other thing I would say about negative self-talk that has helped me personally is I used to shut up my inner critic, like, oh, I'm so much better than this. And that worked for a little bit, but what I've learned is supporting my inner critic and reminding her that she's safe and loved, and that, even if this thing happens, like, you know, we're going to be good. We're in on this together. And that has, I feel my body relax when I
Yeah.
start to do that. And so we need to speak kindly to our inner critics and transform our inner critics to our hype woman or hype man, whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. So true.
Yeah. All right. And so someone else said, let's see, how do I get back my self-confidence after years of disappointment and mistrust?
I mean, I think that disappointment and mistrust seem to be things that came from the outside, right? External circumstances.
Yeah.
So remembering that you get to decide how you feel every single day, right? And if someone did you wrong or something didn't go the way you wanted it to go, ultimately, like, you're responsible for your own inner peace and inner happiness. The minute that we start to put that in the hands of someone else, and listen, don't get me wrong, it sucks to be let down, right? It sucks to, you know, not trust someone or have something terrible happen to you. It doesn't mean that, like, we're discrediting that. But I think there's a point where you have to just assume responsibility for your own joy, your own happiness, and figure out a way to not give that so much power.
How do you know, I was just reading, someone said, Rose said, hi, Cara, I love your book, Girl on Fire, which, you know, when you read something like that, I'm sure it makes you feel good. It's, you know, what I like to call this like happiness high. How do you manage expectations? Because I've always tried to figure out if it's the expectation of something happening that hurts us, or is it the actual disappointment when it doesn't happen? Like, how do you walk yourself through that?
It's a good question. Can you give me like a specific example that I can relate it to?
Yeah. So like, let's say, you know, one of your books, you had hopes that you put on all this time and effort into writing the book. You had hopes it would explode or, you know, do well, whatever the you know, it looked like in your head, and it didn't. How do you manage that sort of roller coaster of emotion that a lot of people go through?
Again, I think for me, I shift into the next thing that I want to create. You know, I'm like, okay, that didn't work. What's next?
I love it. It's like this like flat.
Yeah, like what's next on the list? You know, like I can grieve it for a little while and kind of feel bad, but then it's like, well, what am I going to focus on? Like, how am I pivoting myself? How am I shifting into the next thing? And I think that's where the work on ourselves is so important, and not, like I said earlier, not letting these external things affect us, because when you can pour into you and you can take that energy and that time and go and work on yourself and build your business or take a course that you really want to take, get your website built, go do a photo shoot, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, like just take that energy that you would spend feeling sad and just go and do something better for yourself. Go to the gym, go, you know, whatever, just go to take a cooking class, like do something to better yourself. I think the more you pour into you, the better you're going to handle life in general. Any type of rejection, whether it's, like I said, personal or professional, you start to realize that, like, you are your own source of happiness, right? Nobody else in the world, no book deal, no amount of money can make you happy, no partner can make you happy the same way you can, but you've got to be willing to show up for yourself, right? So what is one thing you can do today to show up for yourself? And I would ask everybody that on this live right now. What is one thing today that you can go out and do after this call ends? And, you know, like, it's a gift that you're giving to yourself.
I love that. And let's challenge everybody, myself included. You can be a part of this. Cara asked everyone, what is one thing that you can do today to challenge yourself after we end this live, which will be in a few minutes? What is one thing you can go and do to help yourself?
Yeah, to
and
build
I would
yourself
love
up.
it. Like, seriously, you guys, like, DM me what you've done. I read all my messages and I try to respond to all of them. Like, Cara, I'm sure you know, you too. Like, send us what you guys have done today. One small thing, small or big, that has helped you to better yourself, to step out of yourself. Someone asked about self-sabotage, which I guess is kind of similar to self-limiting beliefs and things like that. Do you have any advice for people who are, someone said getting their eyebrows waxed. Okay, you do that. I love that.
I think we sabotage ourselves when we don't really feel worthy of that thing, or we don't feel deserving of whatever that thing is. So I would do some work around that and figure out why you feel like you're not worthy of it. And then, like, you know, start to affirm that you are, start to believe that you are, start to view yourself differently, right? Start to, like, create a different self-image. I think self-image is everything. Self-concept, self-image, whatever you want to call it. The way you view yourself is everything. Everything that you do in your life, the way you treat yourself is how everyone else is going to treat you, right? So if I say to myself, I, deserve to be a best-selling author, I did have to affirm that. I really did have to believe that, even after facing all that rejection. I could have easily sabotaged myself, but I viewed myself as a best-selling author, as somebody that was worthy of that. So, figure out how to do it. I don't believe in the term fake it till you make it, but I do think that there's something to be said for just doing it, just showing up, just doing the work, right?
Yeah.
Self-sabotage is like, it's procrastination. It manifests itself in just like not doing anything, and just take that one action step and you'll slowly.
No, go ahead. What were you saying, Cara?
No, I just said slowly you'll get over it, but it takes action.
Yeah.
We're here way too much.
I totally agree. And I think, sometimes I like to remind myself that God, the universe's timing is not always my timing. And, we have to have patience and still work hard towards achieving that goal and believe that we are worthy, because at some point in time, whether it's today, tomorrow, a year from now, 10 years from now, it will happen. And I think also reading stories about people who have succeeded, whether it's succeeded in love, succeeded in life, succeeded in a career, reading books about people who at 50, they started this thing and, it took them all those years, whatever it is, really helps. And you said connecting with people who are doing it big in life. And I think kind of it helps to reframe and rewire our mindset. I wanted to read some people actually responded what they are doing. And I just want to put it out there because I think it's good for others to hear. We said earlier, someone said they're getting their eyebrows waxed, which I think is great self-care. SM Maxwell said, I keep praying to God. I think prayer is huge. Romancing Your Heart said, I'm going to the natural food show, which sounds really fun. Someone said meditation. Someone else said they're going to start their website. I mean, this is like, it's incredible what people have the ability to do and what we all have the ability to do once we step outside of ourselves and stop self-sabotaging and negative self-talk and all that kind of stuff. Last question from our Q&A that I picked. Someone said, I'm so afraid of being honest with other people because I don't want to offend them. What do I do? Is that people pleasing, or is that just something else?
I mean, I would need more context to know. I think if you are afraid of offending someone, there's a way to see things to people. I think you can be really direct, but also be really kind.
Yeah.
If you're worried about offending them by like a choice that you're making and the way you're living your life, that's not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to yourself. I think as long as you're not harming someone else, it's your life, and you don't have to worry about how people receive that. Because like I said earlier, everyone's going to have an opinion of your life and the way you live based on their own limitations, based on their own beliefs, based on what they feel they can accomplish. People can only support to the extent they can support themselves.
Yeah. And I think you have to choose which person to go for what kind of support. Like if you're going to someone who every time you say the sky is blue and they want to argue with you that the sky is pink, okay, like it's not worth that energy. And I get comments from people in the community who are like, I keep going to my dad or my mom or whomever about this thing and they keep knocking me down. Well, that's, again, goes back to our conscious decision making. Choose yourself and choose someone else to go and try to support you, right? I mean,
yeah,
and have to break these habits.
Sometimes there's not going to be anyone to support you, and that's just the fact. And then that's when you have to learn to support yourself. And I actually think it's a blessing when that happens, because that's how you start to choose yourself. That's how you start to develop that self-trust that I talked about earlier, that then builds your confidence.
I love all this. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up. I want to end with just to sort of like put all this in like a pretty little package with a bow. What are your top like 1 to 3 tips for people on how to become a confident badass?
Okay, so trust yourself, number 1. Choose yourself and be yourself.
Ooh.
And you have to kind of like make it as simple as possible. Trust yourself, choose yourself, be yourself.
Trust yourself, choose yourself, be yourself. I love that. I kind of want to like put it on a post-it and like hang it on my mirror so that way I look at it and I always remind myself of those things. I think those are so relatable and easy to understand. So, and also I want to ask you, do you have anything coming out now? Like, what do you want people to know about you that you're working on? Or obviously go to your page because I'm so inspired by your page. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, my page is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I've written 9 books. You can find them all on Amazon. So you can search my name, Cara Alwill. They'll all come up. I also have a podcast called Style Your Mind. There's a lot of really good episodes I just released this year. So definitely go through those. I make it short on purpose. They're all between 10 and 20 minutes tops, unless it's an interview. Rare. It's usually just me. They're filled with like actionable tips. So it's like a little mini coaching session in every episode. So I think those are the 2 ways to connect with me at the moment, the podcast and my books. And of course,
yeah. So everyone, please go to the Champagne Diet on Instagram. Give her a follow. She's really just so inspiring, raw, and like, just, I love your energy. So,
thank you. Love yours too.
Oh, thank you. And I feel like you not only speak it, but you walk it, you think it, and I think that combination is so rare and unique and powerful. So everyone, please go follow Champagne Diet. I want to thank everyone for joining and taking your time out. And I have to say, this is like this hour that we just spent with all of you. That's one thing that all of you just did to probably uplift yourselves and take yourselves out of a negative space, because I like to look at these lives as like you said, free coaching. It's almost like a coaching session. It's like free therapy. So please take in what Cara said. I'm actually not going to be saving the lives anymore to our page. Instead, we're going to be starting a YouTube page with all of the lives, so everyone can go check that out. So I'll let you guys know that information. But thank you so much to Cara for everything. You are such,
for having me.
Oh my goodness, anytime. You are such like a bright, beautiful light. And really, and yeah, I'm just so grateful to have had this conversation with you. And thank you everyone for joining and taking the time to be here. So sending everyone so much love and light. Bye everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Mwah.